This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
This is A Different Perspective with Kevin Randle. A retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel, Kevin Randle has been studying UFOs for nearly 50 years. Kevin has investigated some of the most famous UFO cases in the world and has been consulted for dozens of documentaries about UFOs. Considered one of the leading experts into the Roswell UFO crash of 1947, Kevin has written more than 25 books about UFOs, including the recently published Roswell in the 21st Century. Now, here is the host of A Different Perspective, Kevin Randle.
As I promised last week, we are back for another show. This is, in fact, A Different Perspective, and I am Kevin Randle. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. I have as my guest, my special guest, Larry Lawrence. I knew I was going to do it. Larry Lawson. His name is right there on the screen, and we talked about this before we went on the air, and I did it immediately. Hopefully, I have it out of my system. Anyway, my guest is Larry Lawson, and we're going to start this on my program, A Different Perspective, and we're going to complete it on his program. We're going to cover the subject of UFOs. We're going to talk about Paranormal Stakeout, which is his program on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. And if you want to listen to his program, you can take a look at it there, and it's posted on the internet as well. Listen to it on the radio. And so we're going to have a kind of a 2-hour block of instruction, but we're going to begin with UFOs, and then we'll slide into the paranormal and the things that we know about that. Let me say in the beginning, welcome, Larry Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Randle, for having me on the show. It's going to be a fun time, I can tell.
And I knew, because we were making jokes about this Larry Lawson, this Larry Lawrence thing, that I was going to do that immediately. I didn't think I would do it quite that quickly. Maybe I have it out of my system now.
I doubt it.
You do, of course, paranormal research in the state of Florida.
Yes, I do.
And that involves ghosts and ghost hunting and that sort of thing.
Correct.
But of course, as you know, we have a very short period here before we have to take our first break. But as you do your paranormal research there, do you come across UFO sightings? Are there sometimes UFOs involved? Because, as we all know, UFOs fall under the umbrella of the paranormal, depending on how you interpret these things. So I was just wondering, do you get a lot of UFO reports in conjunction with your paranormal research?
Well, you know, Kevin, lately we have been, and I can't even say just lately. It's been something that has cropped up. There are people in the, shall we say, the ghost paranormal field that have had some significant interactions. Some of them are a little more believable than others. But yeah, it's out there, and there's a couple of different theories about that, and I'm looking forward to talking with you about that.
So as you're out there looking at, I guess, the ghost, you do see things that suggest UFOs, and by UFOs here I mean specifically spacecraft as opposed to points of light in the distance.
Well, most of the folks that I have dealt with are either seeing, when we're investigating, for example, a cemetery, and there's a spot in particular down here in Florida just south of the big lake, Lake Okeechobee. It's a cemetery, obviously it's outside, and the very qualified investigators that work that area have told me that while they're out there, they are seeing unusual objects in the sky moving in a way that's not normal for an aircraft. And they consider them to be UFOs. There's also folks out there that'll discuss different dimensions. There are some of our folks out there that just absolutely think that ghosts and aliens are connected. So there's dozens of different theories out there, and we've certainly run into investigations where people see something unusual in the sky. There's no doubt about it. Now, why that's occurring, that's going to be open for discussion on our show tonight.
Well, I think the interesting thing, though, is, and you brought it up here briefly, is the interdimensional aspect of it. And talking to my colleagues in the UFO field of this, we often say that, you break down the UFO sightings into aliens from other planets, interstellar flight type things, nuts and bolts type things. But there's also discussion, and a lot of people think that there may be some sort of an interdimensional aspect to the UFO phenomenon, which means I guess they would be residents of Earth, but not in our dimension. So we don't interact with them except randomly and periodically and briefly in what we might think of as ghosts. Is that kind of what you're going to are talking about there?
Exactly. In the ghost side of the paranormal field. And you said something perfect right up front. Paranormal is not just ghosts. It is anything that's outside the norm. And so, yes, we do deal with people believing that ghosts are actually from a different dimension. And if that's the case, why could it not be aliens, I suppose?
Let me break in here because we're going to have to take the break. We'll kind of go in this direction when we come back. We will be back right after this with Larry LAWSON and talking about all kinds of paranormal and UFO activity.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Hello, I'm Pete Marsh. With my daughter Justina, we will be presenting the new radio show, Too Good to Be True. If something seems too good to be true, it usually is. But with the help of Justina's amazing gifts, we're going to gain insight into questions that don't yet have complete answers. Have you wondered who built Stonehenge and for what reason? Why are crop circles found in the same region as Stonehenge and elsewhere? Are crop circles a hoax, or are they created with technologies that we have little knowledge of? Who built the pyramids in Egypt and also in other countries? How and why were they built? Was the Titanic switched with the Britannic as part of a gigantic insurance fraud, or for more insidious reasons? What caused the Tunguska event when trees were flattened over an 800 square mile area in Siberia? Will the new insights be too good to be true? Well, that will depend on what you are prepared to believe. Please join us as we start on this journey together. For more information on Too Good to Be True, visit www.xzbn.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
And as promised just moments ago, I am back with Larry LAWSON. I almost said Lawrence again. I cannot believe that. I almost said Larry Lawrence. Again, I don't get this. Anyway, I'm back with Larry LAWSON. We were talking about kind of interdimensional UFO sightings, but I thought before we go in that direction, and I know that, Larry, you're not an expert on UFOs and this sort of thing, but are there a lot of UFO sightings, I mean traditional UFO sightings, in the state of Florida that you're aware of?
Oh, sure. There's certainly the ones up in Gulf Breeze are the ones that I'm most familiar with. Certainly around Homestead Air Force Base down in the Miami area. Cape Kennedy, there's always been stuff there. And Kevin, if I may, I kind of look at this paranormal field, and this is just my opinion, is how to put this. You've got doctors, certainly not comparing us with physicians, but you've got doctors that are surgeons, and some are thoracic experts, but we're all doctors. But that doesn't mean we're experts in the area of brain surgery. Does that make sense? So that's where I'm coming from with the paranormal. You're right. That is not my field, but we do have a working knowledge of it, just like I know you have of ghosts.
Well, let me take us to Gulf Breeze, because I think a lot of people are familiar with that sighting. These were the Ed Walters sightings that took place in the late 1980s. He had photographs. He had lots of witnesses. There was a lot of stuff going on. There were TV specials. I think it was a live TV special from Gulf Breeze at one point to show about the flying saucers there. So you mentioned Gulf Breeze. What is your take on that?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Gulf Breeze was fairly close to the Air Force Base up there, and certainly any place where there's military installations, where there's a lot of instrumentation, perhaps radar, it tends to attract at least the sightings.
But what I'm looking for here more so is, did you think these were real sightings of extraterrestrial craft? Was it misidentifications? Was it a hoax?
I don't believe it was a hoax. Was it misidentification? I think we'd be foolish to believe that the government tells us everything they're doing. It wouldn't make sense. We can't know everything, otherwise the bad guys know things too. So I'm sure some of it may have been some sort of testing. But on the same token, I think we'd also be foolish to think that we're the only ones in the universe. So is it possible? Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, what about the photographs? I mean, there was a series of 18 photographs, I think, that Walters took with his Polaroid camera. And they showed sort of a bell-shaped craft with a ring of lights about it and lights coming down on the road and that sort of thing. So, I mean, that's not a misidentification. It's either one of two things. It's an alien spacecraft, because clearly it's nothing built on Earth, or it is, in fact, a hoax. And so I know I'm kind of moving you out of your comfort zone here, but we're talking about UFOs. So I wondered if you had an opinion about those photographs.
Well, in looking at them, and of course, it almost looks like, and this is my description, almost a crown. That's
that's a very apt description. That's a very apt description.
And it certainly is not an aircraft of which most people are used to seeing. Now, on the same token, there were certain and I'm sure you're aware of it. The Army came up with a saucer type of flying Jeep back in the 50s. It was a fan base and lifted it up off the ground. So there's all sorts of unusual aircraft that have been developed by our country and tested. So is that what this is? It could be, but I'm also open-minded enough to believe, or to at least consider the possibility, it's of an extraterrestrial source. And I think that's important that we all keep that open mind. It's really, really easy to shut stuff down just because you don't think. But most of us, especially in our fields, keeping that open mind, saying, hey, it's possible. That Gulfstream UFO is not like any aircraft I've ever seen, and I don't even understand how it would propel itself. So,
well, clearly you meant Gulf Breeze as opposed to Gulfstream.
Yeah, Gulf Breeze. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking.
No, I only brought that up because I didn't want to confuse the listeners out there.
Yeah, Gulfstream is a little town of Gulfstream is a little town of Palm Beach. I apologize for that.
But I'm thinking that the photographs, and I think that a model was found in the house. Walters had owned a house. He sold it, and as the new owners were going through it, they found a model that kind of resembled the craft in the photographs. And I think that speaks strongly to the idea that at least part of it was a hoax. But when you bring in the other witnesses, I think that they were out looking for UFOs, and any light in the sky was going to kind of fool them, which brings us kind of back to some of the things we were talking about a little bit earlier, and that's the apparitions that people see. And I'm gonna just drag on here for a moment. I'm wondering if when they're doing the ghost hunting, and we'll probably do this in the next hour even more in depth, but in the ghost hunting, when they're seeing something, is it more of a ambiguous light, an ambiguous something like that, or is it a more of a solid object?
Rarely do you see anything that would be considered a solid object, and certainly many times it's ambiguous, and that's why certainly in the UFO field as well as the ghost field, you've got to keep that edge of skepticism on you to not immediately jump at something you see and say, oh, that's a UFO or that's a ghost. And I'm sure you find that in your field quite often too, where people look at something, they see something move a little strangely in the sky and immediately call it out to be a UFO. So certainly we have situations on our side where folks just overreact.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I'm just, what I'm trying to get at here, I suppose, is moving back into this interdimensional thing.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what an interdimensional being would look like. So, that was kind of where I was going. But I mean, how would you distinguish between something that might be interdimensional and something that might be a spirit? How do you make that kind of a distinction?
I don't think anybody can right now. I was reading an article just recently that was very interesting, and it talked about aliens either coming from another dimension and phasing in and out, or maybe even cloaking themselves. But they move so quickly you can't tell. So the point is, nobody knows for sure. Nobody knows the exact answer, and that's one thing that really kind of troubles me, at least in my side of the house, is folks claiming to know the answers. Well, we really don't know the answers yet. Any more than, I guess, on your side, they talk about how somebody can come from another solar system, the speed and things. I mean, we just don't know the answers to those yet. So I don't know the answer to how you could really tell if it's an interdimensional being or a spirit.
And that's a fair answer, I guess. I was also thinking about this in the aspect of ancient aliens, ancient astronauts, and that sort of thing. That kind of strikes me as kind of another area of paranormal investigation. And so you have looked into or studied about or heard about ancient astronauts and ancient aliens. What's your take on that?
I think, and once again, I certainly don't. I try to keep an open mind, and I try very hard not to, how to say this, disparage other folks' opinion. But I can't see where the ancient aliens concept holds much water. Yeah, there's some strange drawings out there, but is it truthfully somebody memorializing an event that occurred back in ancient times of our forefathers coming in on a UFO, or is it just how they express themselves in that bit of art? I don't know. I don't see the strong evidence of how UFOs visited us in ancient times and made us what we are today, and that's just my opinion on that.
But that falls into the kind of the paranormal aspect of it, going back and looking at these societies and how they've interpreted the things they've seen in the sky around them, and that sort of thing. So I'm looking at the ancient aliens providing knowledge, but you don't see any of that in the research you've done?
No, I have not. I get the feeling, this is just from my end of it, that folks are reaching for answers. And I see that in the paranormal side too. People are reaching for answers. That's not to say there isn't some solid evidence out there. I just haven't seen it yet to my satisfaction, if that makes sense. So
your opinion would be, and here I am putting words in the mouth of Larry Lawrence. Yes, I did that on purpose. Larry Lawson, that the ancient aliens is kind of a misinterpretation of the world around them as opposed to alien visitation.
Well, and didn't the many ancient peoples do that same thing? For example, when there was a solar eclipse, which is a totally natural event, they felt it was an evil entity eating the sun to punish them for their wrong deeds. Yes, it's people's perceptions, and I think that's probably what happened back in those days. Now, I hasten to say there are folks that have spent more time researching it than I. Certainly my field is in the paranormal world is ghosts and spirits. And I want to give you a thought on this in just a second. So I'm just giving you my opinion on that. Now, one thing I will mention, I'm going to kind of switch gears in you just a second. If you're going to take the perspective that spirits are the souls of those that have departed, and that there's a spiritual world out there, why would there not be a spiritual world in the alien world? Does that make sense?
Well, there was actually an interesting science fiction story that had been done about that, where a fellow with his spaceship was basically chasing Jesus across the universe, and every time he'd get to a planet, it would seem that Jesus had just left there. So that's kind of where we're going with that. But I'm thinking more along the lines of the ancient aliens coming down and providing us with some sort of guidance to move our civilization forward, to advance our civilization, as opposed to looking at it as a spiritual world. I think when we look at our ancestors, they certainly were viewing the world through a, dare I say it, a different perspective than what we were doing, simply because we have a greater scientific knowledge than they do. A meteor, a bright meteor, a bolide would be a rare event and might frighten them, whereas we know exactly what it is. Well, most of us know what it is, and are not frightened by it. But they would talk about a glowing spear across the sky, and we now interpret that as a UFO, a flying saucer. So I'm kind of looking at it from that point of view, and I always wondered why, if they're traveling interstellar distances, they've clearly got metallurgy, something you need to do that, and when they get here, the only building material they have is stone, as opposed to communicating the metallurgy to our ancient relatives. But I just wondered, in the paranormal world, how this ancient alien thing is viewed by those who investigate ghosts and that sort of thing. Do they look at it much? Do they try to interpret it from there?
Not specifically. You'll find most folks in our field are pretty. It's just like in the other field. They're pretty focused on the spiritual angle of it, and I don't hear a lot of discussion on that. Now, what I do hear some discussion on is the energies that cause spirits to manifest, and the possibility that those energies might attract other beings, such as aliens.
So you're saying that it's sort of like if you've got a radio station broadcasting that you can only tune in by hitting the right frequency, but that energy is out there, and the spirits might be tuning in that energy as the aliens are tuning in that same energy. So you get a confluence, if you will, of those two things coming together.
Dreams are our personal gateways into infinite wisdom. Don't miss shamanic counselor and indigenously trained dream decoder Sandra Corcoran's inspiring book, Shamanic Awakening Between the Dark and the Daylight. This remarkable work chronicles Sandra's 35 years of experience with diverse wisdom keepers and her initiations throughout the Americas and across the British Isles, Turkey, Greece, and Egypt. Sandy's knowledge of symbology, psychology, and myth influence her dream blog and workshops. Sandy offers private tarot readings, international journeys, a meditative CD, as well as her book, Shamanic Awakening, to encourage you as you navigate this earth walk, creating a deeper connection to yourself and all that is. Find this and more at Sandy's website, starwalkervisions.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Mnemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created mnemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Hello, I'm Justina Marsh, and with my dad Pete, we are going to present a new show called Too Good to Be True. Together, we are aiming to discover more truths about this world and beyond. Do you have unanswered questions about the world? Do you ever wonder about aliens, conspiracy theories, or the universe? There are many shows discussing subjects such as pyramids or UFOs, but we want to relay this information based on our own research, including from spiritual means. Hopefully, listeners will be helped with their own beliefs and will appreciate the psychic insights that add to the previous research and information. We both look forward to sharing this insight and beginning this journey with our listeners. Visit xzbn.net for more information about when to listen.
We are back, believe it or not, For some reason, I read the clock wrong, and I did not make the proper transition to this segment. I don't know where I was at that moment. I was just off on a tangent here, and I just don't understand it. I am joined by Larry LAWSON, who is now trying to get me to say Larry Lawrence every time I come back from one of these things. And maybe we'll convince him to change his name to something like Larry Owen LAWSON. And it will be LOL.
Really?
Yeah, I had to get that in there.
Yeah,
anyway, we are back with a different perspective. We were talking a little bit about UFOs and how they are, I guess, impinging on the ghost hunting activities and that sort of thing, and looking for is there a reason why we sometimes get reports of a ghostly phenomenon along with UFO phenomena? That's kind of where we were, and when we went away, I'm not sure we got all of that in before we had to take the break, but we are back with that now. And if you want to hear more about the paranormal, take a look at Larry LAWSON's Paranormal Stakeout on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, and you can scroll down and find his programs and listen to that and the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Anyway, let's explore this a little bit further. We were talking about the energies that might be associated with the ghostly phenomena being something that would draw the aliens to that, and I was kind of wondering, if you get a lot of UFO reports that look more like spacecraft when you're out involved in these sorts of things, or if that's kind of an unusual phenomena in and of itself.
Well, it is, and I got to start off by saying, Kevin, that I don't call this an impingement. I find myself learning from you, and hopefully, on our show, you'll learn a little bit more about my side of the paranormal world, and that's what this is all about. All of us learning a little bit more, making us a little more well-versed in each other's specialties in the field, if you will. So, well,
maybe an intrusion would have been a better word, or a crossover. You've somebody out there investigating the paranormal, and they see something that they now perceive as an alien spacecraft.
Yeah, intrusion is more what our producer does with us sometimes, but I won't get into that. Right? Anyway, you're absolutely right, and I think us learning more about each other's field is going to be super helpful. Let's talk about the energies a little bit. I really like that because I haven't seen too many paranormal ghost investigators talking about sighting an actual UFO, say at treetop level. I've not seen much of that. That's not to say that hasn't happened. The ones that I have heard talk about it, based upon the descriptions, based upon the fact that I'm a cop and I like solid evidence, I got to question some of it, and certainly I know you get those kind of folks in your field also. But what I have seen is ghost investigators, and that's the term I use for this, talk about seeing things in the sky that they can't explain at the same time that they are working on ghosts on the ground. And my feeling is, and I think it's an interesting concept, that the energies that are the spirits are using to manifest themselves may very well be that beacon. We've been in the field a number of times and taking pictures of, how to put this, like beams of light coming from the ground. We call them vortexes. That's certainly energy. Well, if we're going to talk about UFOs perhaps being drawn to military installations where they're using radar and that type of electronic equipment, why wouldn't that type of energy also attract them? Do you see where I'm coming from?
Absolutely, but the thing I'm wondering, which is kind of taking us in a little bit different direction, when the investigators perceive what they think of as UFOs now, something in the sky, do they report those ever?
Yes. Well, they should. And once again, when you take it from my perspective, collecting, preserving, presenting evidence, it doesn't matter what type of phenomenon you see. It should be cataloged, it should be documented, and it should be presented. Put it in the cop sense for a second. You are investigating a burglary, okay? And in that burglary, you come across narcotics. Certainly, you're not going to turn your head a blind eye to the narcotics. It will just become another phase of the investigation, if you can see my analogy a little bit. And that's what I would see ghost investigators doing should they encounter something that they can't explain in the skies. They should document it, preserve it, present it.
Well, one of the things that strikes me, and it kind of comes out of an abduction case that I was involved with, and we'll go into more of this in the next hour, of course, was a woman who believed she was abducted by aliens, and as we investigated it, we moved into a past life regression. Mm-hmm. And so rather than try to force her into our belief structure, if you will, we took the information and ran with it in the direction she went with it, meaning simply we began looking at it from that point of view, and that there was not an alien abduction involved. And that was what I kind of wondered about in your investigations. If you see a manifestation, whatever it might be, and it becomes clear it's not spiritual in some way, but it's more extraterrestrial, it's more nuts and bolts type thing, do you take it and run with it in that direction, or do you merely say, well, that is not our field of investigation, let somebody else worry about it?
And that is actually an excellent question. I have not personally experienced that or been in a position where that was a necessary decision to make. A little bit different. Most of our investigations traditionally are indoors. Yes, we do some outdoor work. When you're dealing in certain places, you may be dealing with some sort of elementals, nature spirits, you'd be outside. Cemeteries, you may be outside. But generally, a lot of our work is done indoors inside of buildings that are purported to be haunted. But if I was to encounter a UFO, something that was very pronounced in an investigation, and bear something in mind, if we look at the sky and we see a dot and that is low enough that it looks to be a UFO, and it's certainly moving in a way that is not normal for an aircraft, we would document it. Probably what I would recommend is contacting somebody in your field to go over the evidence. Just like our conversation tonight, I'm learning quite a bit about the UFO field in our discussion here. Well, certainly I'm not an expert, so I would take that evidence and I would go to somebody with your background. And in doing that, I continue to learn. And that's what we're all about when it comes to Paranormal Unity, is we're learning a little bit about each other, and that's the direction I would take. But you got to understand, most of the time we are indoors. So that does create a little bit of a difference. Now, but here's
the problem I would have with that, and it's simply this. In the abduction phenomenon, and I'm not a big proponent of the abduction phenomenon, but the reports are that the aliens come into the house. Mm-hmm. So you have people who talk about alien abduction and say that the aliens came in and took them out of the house in some fashion. So how would you distinguish between something like that and a manifestation of a spirit?
Wow, now that's also another really good question, and that comes to training. And this is a topic that I've spent some time on, training our people to be more cognizant of that possibility. Certainly, if we were to come across a person that, for example, says that the spirit possessed them or somehow entered their body, and that does happen on occasion. And once you've weeded out any possibilities of any type of organic problems with the person, in talking to them, in interviewing them, interviewing skills are vital in both of our fields, and finding out exactly what it is they saw, felt, experienced, and continue with that interview and investigation, it could lead us to an abduction scenario. That's certainly possible. I'm certainly not saying that can't occur. I haven't experienced it, and maybe it's because my eyes weren't open enough.
So there's a possibility that when you're investigating a ghost, especially the way things are being described, it's possible that the person is really describing an alien abduction as opposed to a ghost phenomenon, but you have no way to discriminate between the two.
We don't have that kind of technology yet, and that's one of the big reasons why nobody's been able to say, okay, this is a ghost for this reason, and this is why they're appearing before us. I mean, there are philosophies out there right now that talks about aliens because of many people feel that they're here on this planet now. Perhaps they are cloaking themselves in an attempt to hide themselves, and every once in a while they phase into view and phase out. Are we mistaking those for ghosts? I don't know. I don't know how right now we would be able to distinguish that, to be quite frank with you. There's also issues of the dimension. Now, let's say if you were to take the theory of dimensions kind of crossing and phasing in and out from each other, is that what's happening? We don't know yet. And that's where we really we've got to get away, and I'm going to talk about my field briefly. We got to get away from the thrill of, oh, I heard a noise, it's a ghost. And we got to get more into, why did we hear the noise? What was the noise? What was the source of it? How did it occur, rather than just getting excited about hearing it, if that makes sense.
Well, then you've not really developed a protocol for distinguishing between what might possibly be an alien abduction and might possibly a ghost, which moves us into a different perspective.
It does.
To coin a phrase, which is the phenomenon of sleep paralysis, which is this idea that you are either just going to sleep or you're just waking up and you cannot move. You feel that there's some kind of an entity in the room. Eventually, you can break the paralysis. You either move or something. The paralysis breaks, and you can go on. You can get up. You can do whatever you were going to do. But that would seem to me that would cause a great deal of problem with not only you as a paranormal researcher, but it causes a great deal of problem for us as abduction researchers or UFO researchers, because this is a natural phenomenon that was not really understood until the last 15 or 20 years, giving us a false perception of what's going on around us.
Well, I disagree that it would cause us a problem. I guess it would, in the sense that we're trying to prove either one of our two theories. But on the same token, we as investigators have to be willing to follow the evidence where it goes. And if that means that sleep paralysis is the cause of, I don't know, pick a number, 90% of these types of events, then we have to take that seriously, because we have to be willing to not only prove what we believe in our hearts, but also if the evidence takes us to disprove it, we've got to be willing to accept it. So these are the types of things that I really purport, I think are important in both of our fields, creating doctrine, creating procedures that prove the answer, regardless of what we want the answer to be. Am I heading the way you see where I'm going with it?
Absolutely, but and we haven't developed the protocols to separate sleep paralysis from abduction or a ghostly phenomenon. We're going to have to take another break here. Quickly. But I would like to say that we'll have more information about this at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. And I have explored the question of sleep paralysis and alien abduction on the blog a number of times for those of you who are interested in looking at that and what some of the information about it is. In fact, I've debated Bud Hopkins on the problem as well, and what his research has shown and how some of that may have been instances of sleep paralysis. Once again, that's www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com, and take a look for Larry Lawson's program, The Paranormal Stakeout, at xzbn.net, so you can hear the other part of our conversation tonight, but some of the other things that he's explored on his program, dealing with the paranormal, with the ghosts, and that sort of thing. And never forget to take a look at Roswell in the 21st Century, which leads us back into the UFOs, to see what's going on in the Roswell case. We will be back for the final segment right after this.
Are you curious? Do you want to learn more about how the world works and have fun at the same time? Study coincidences with me, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, on my Connecting with Coincidence radio show here on the XZBN network. Listen to Jungians theorize, statisticians randomize, true believers evangelize, while I categorize. I dance to the rhythm of coincidences. People who experience me see more of them. Maybe something on the show matches a thought in your mind. Let us know. Expand your mind to the weirdness happening around you. Synchronicity spoken here, there, and everywhere. For more information, put Connecting with Coincidence in your search engine and find my website, my social media sites, and my blog.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A Soul Balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world. There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the 4 corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting the sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net.
And we have returned after what it turned out to be a much longer break than we expected.
It's too bad
Yes.
the audience can't hear that.
Nobody knows what was going on. Anyway, when we went away, we were sort of moving in the direction of past life regressions and that sort of thing. I realized it wasn't really going in that direction, but that's kind of where we were going. And I wanted to bring up some of the research that will transition us into the program tonight. I'd done some research into past life regressions and that sort of thing. I did a book called To Touch the Light, which was about near-death experiences. But in the course of that, I talked to a number of people who had had these past lives, and I was thinking that past life regressions would be an interesting way of doing archaeology. What was it really like to be a Roman or an Egyptian? And these people were claiming to have past lives like that. It might give us a clue to some of that was going on. And so that was kind of where we're going with that. Because for me, at least, looking at the ancient alien stuff, and I was always kind of fascinated with this simply because studying anthropology in college, we would be talking about these sites, and the ancient astronaut movies and the programs were all going to those sites. So I got to see them on television, what they look like. So that kind of sparked all this interest going on along with the UFOs. So, Larry, now that I've moved into this arena, do you do a lot of the past life regressions, or do you deal with that much in your research into the paranormal?
Well, you kind of have to, because the past life regression kind of opens the door into that spiritual world that many feel. Let me back up just a little bit. The answer is yes. You're going to find several different types of folks in the ghost field, if you will. Some are believe that there's a spirits going to heaven or going to hell. Some believe it's just a continuation of humanity as we go through spirit changes to human form and whatnot. So past life regression becomes a very important part of that, and there's some really, really good reading on it too, and it does help us kind of get an idea of maybe where the spirits are coming from and where they're going. Does that make sense? When you're looking at the past life regressions, we're actually talking about reincarnation here. Yes, we are. Person Absolutely. Living in a number of different time periods. Mm-hmm. And I know, according to some of the research I've done or some of the things I've heard, that the church actually cut out references to reincarnation out of the Bible. So there were some things in the Bible that suggested reincarnation. And I hesitate to bring that up because I'm afraid I'll offend some of the listeners about that. But I mean, this is true. The Bible is not it was edited. Frankly, it was edited and some of the things were left out. But we're looking at past lives. Do you accept the idea of these past life regressions as being authentic, or are you thinking that it might be something else that's being drawn upon? Okay, that's a very, very interesting question, because from a law enforcement officer standpoint, I have seen folks in the psychoanalysis field, psychiatry field, and sometimes not even purposefully, I want to make sure that's clear, sometimes encourage people to remember things that perhaps didn't occur, but by accidentally at times, and maybe even sometimes purposely, suggesting things, they come up with answers from the past. So that's a possibility. On the flip side, wouldn't that be a therapeutic activity? A way of treating somebody's problems, whether it's a psychosis or even a phobia or something like that. Wouldn't that be a therapeutic strategy? Absolutely. And in my field of specialty, which is crimes against children, that's been a very successful tool in helping folks that have repressed memories, suppressed memories, into getting them out and dealing with it so that they can continue on with their lives. It's a very, very helpful tool. But sometimes, if not done properly, it can suggest. So what I'm saying is, while yes, it's helpful and done appropriately, it can open up new doors to an individual that's been hurting for some reason they don't know why. But on the same token, not done correctly, it can cause more harm than good. So yes, the simple answer to your question is yes, it can be very helpful. But the ancillary question would be simply, do you accept the past lives that some of these people are talking about as being authentic? Wow, that's been a hard one for me personally, but the evidence keeps growing that there is something out there that can't be explained. And if you read some of the stories, hear what some people say, you can't deny the sincerity of these folks. And if you know their backgrounds well enough, you know that they're not making it up, nor has it been suggested to them. So it's been a tough one for me, but I'm definitely coming around to that, where I think that's a distinct possibility. Why it's occurring, the jury's still out, but I'm embracing it, shall we say? So let me rephrase to see if I've got this right. You're suggesting that some of these past lives are real. These people actually experience these past lives. Yeah, I think some of it is undeniable based upon the evidence. And I'm an evidence-based individual. So based upon what's coming out, I find it hard to disprove it. At the very least, my mind has become more open to it than it was 5 years ago. Well, we were kind of starting out with UFOs, and that was kind of where we wanted to go and talk about how the paranormal looks at UFOs, and you're looking at it from a different perspective. And I just love the way I can keep using that term here. That's good, great advertising, man. Absolutely. About that,
And so we've transitioned from the UFOs into something that is sort of related to UFOs. And I mentioned the woman who talked about being abducted and moved it into. We didn't move it into. She actually moved it into a past life regression. And I think we'll talk quite a bit about that in the other segment of the program on your show, which is of course the Paranormal Stakeout, which is available as I say on the xzbn.net website. You can take a look at that and listen to what we have to say about that later on. But this, I think, evolved into a book that I called Conversations. And I was always a little bit ambivalent about this thing, whether or not it was true, in the sense that, I mean, she truly believed what she was saying to us, but that doesn't mean it was necessarily based in reality. Is that something that you run into as well?
Absolutely. And it's in the law enforcement field, we constantly deal with individuals that have a sense of reality that may not fit into the norm, shall we say. And there's no question there are folks that truly, truly believe something that's happened based upon whatever's going on in their lives, what other issues they have with themselves, and they believe it, even though it's proven category not to be true. On the same token, there are some folks that will provide these types of stories that the evidence just is overwhelming based upon their background, their history, and they've discussed what has happened to them, and you listen to it, and you read the dossier, and you realize this person couldn't be making this up. So, go ahead.
But isn't there a sort of an osmosis process here? What I'm saying is that we're surrounded by all this information now, whether it's on the television, people talking. I mean, we're bombarded with information 24 hours a day practically. We have the internet and all of this going on. Isn't it possible that a lot of these people who are thinking they're experience of past life has kind of gleaned the information from the atmosphere around them, and it sounds plausible simply
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that's when it becomes incumbent upon the investigator and the person doing the past life regression work, whether it's a hypnotherapy or whatever, to do it properly, look at the evidence, and glean through it carefully. Yes, it's absolutely possible. It happens. It doesn't just happen in the paranormal world. It doesn't happen in past life regressions dealing with UFOs. It happens with victims of crimes. Sometimes they're heavily influenced by what's around them, and that's why we have to be so careful as to how we ask the questions, how we do the research on the individual and what they're saying. I mean, there's some stories out there right now that I know the research they did on a child that talked about something they could not have known about. The painstaking research that was done to corroborate what he was saying. There's no explanation on how the child got this information. Okay.
Well, we're going to get into specifics here.
Yeah.
In the next hour, which will be on the Paranormal Stakeout, so that you'll have to look for that. But we'll talk about specifics on that, so that people can take a look at it on the web or whatnot and see if the information is accurate. And we'll take a look at two of the books that I did, To Touch the Light, which deals with near-death experiences, and there was information about past lives in there. And a book I did called Conversations, which is strictly about this woman's journey through her past lives, if you will, and what she said about that. So we'll do that on Paranormal Stakeout, which will be the other segment, and Larry Lawson will be the one running the conversation at that point rather than me. So maybe you won't hear me as much. I don't know. But for more information about what we've talked about here on this program and what's coming up later, take a look at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. And if you have trouble, look at xzbn.net, look for Larry Lawson, look for the Paranormal Stakeout and that sort of thing. And I will be back on the show talking about other aspects. We haven't locked it down yet, and I'm hoping to get the woman with the information about Oak Island on here very shortly, so we can
I want to listen to that show.
So we will do that. And when you get a chance, take a look at the book Roswell in the 21st Century, which deals with a sort of a cold case investigation of the Roswell case after 25 years, 30 years, 40 years of the stuff that has been put out about that. And I think that you'll get a a different perspective about the Roswell case and that sort of thing. So I will be back by myself with a different guest in 167 hours, and I will be joining Larry Lawson on his program, The Paranormal Stakeout. So that's where you'll hear from me next. So keep a sharp ear out and listen for the programs on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Thank you.